Got it. Okay. This week, week 2. All right. How many want to eventually become the boss? Who wants to be the boss? It could be of a section, of a team, of a department, of a company. A few of you. Okay. You're going to have to be able to decide who you're going to hire. Okay. So organizational behavior, that's what this course is all about. You're going to want to apply some organizational behavioral skills when you're looking at applicants. Now, even if you're not the boss, you may be involved in the hiring process. You might be part of the team, or you may be with HR, and you need to understand some of these things. For instance, managers and leaders need to pick the right person for the right function in the organization. You're not going to hire somebody who is an exceptional janitorial worker to be, let's say, a neurologist. A totally different skill set. Waste of abilities, right? You want to make sure the person is able and that they've got a passion for it. So let's see what your textbook by Black et al., what they have to say. You want to know who has the best skills, who has the best behavioral track record. So you're going to look at their record if you have access to it, or you're going to talk to their references and find out, has there been any behavioral issues with that individual? Who has a personality that will fit that task or team? Now, you could have the person sit down and take the MBTI. Now, first of all, any assessment is going to be inaccurate. I preface it all the time. I believe in the MBTI, but it's inaccurate because it's subjective data as of that moment. And so if someone takes the MBTI today, it may be different than it will be in a year from now. Okay? It's not saying that she's lying, but it's saying that it is subjective. And so when you use the MBTI, whether for yourself or if you're looking at the results for a potential new candidate, you have to keep that in mind. But you can find certain things in there that give you a general understanding about that person's personality. You're going to be looking to see, are they getting angry quick? Do they have a problem with authority? And you can see that in the MBTI. Who's got the best performance record? When I was in the Navy and in the Army, every quarter we would get an evaluation done. And they would sit down. In the Army, it would be my sergeant until I became the sergeant. And then it was my platoon sergeant that did it. But they always, somebody at a higher rank sat down and they went through what I've been doing, how I've been performing, what my attitude was like, my attendance, all that stuff went into there. And it went into my permanent file. So when I went up for promotion, that got pulled out and got looked at. Now, companies don't necessarily do it the same as the military, but there are some similarities. If I have an employee, when I've been a manager in different places in the past, and I have to write an employee up, you have a verbal warning. Now, a verbal warning can still be documented. You can have formal written write-ups, and that is on a form that's put into their file. So you can see the person had a verbal warning, or that you can actually read if they've had any write-ups. So you can see that this person, they've been performing good or bad. Now, I'm hiring Jana. I've never worked with her. I don't have her record. How do I get this information? Well, one, I can ask questions during the interview. And I use questions that will give me insight into her past behavior. Okay, so I use open-ended questions. I don't use closed questions. Nothing that can be answered with yes or no. If there's a one-word answer, that's not a good way to go about it. So you ask questions that are open-ended. It's going to force her to give me at least a sentence. Once most people start talking, they don't stop. And so you're not going to get usually one sentence. You'll get a paragraph, 2 or 3 or 4. Fine, no problem. They'll tell you a lot about themselves that way. I can also call up her references. And she's given me her 3 references. I call them up and I say, did she have any behavioral problems? Did she have any issues with her? Did she get in trouble? I can ask these questions to her person that she gave as a reference, and they can tell me, oh, no, she always did fine. Now I'm buying this on their word, but I can say, okay, she's moved up in the candidate process. But now I'm still going to keep an eye on her because now I'm her supervisor. Even though she may have never been in trouble before, she may now start acting up. Why? Maybe she doesn't like the way the company is set up. Maybe she doesn't like what we're doing. Maybe it's not a good cultural fit for her. Or personal problems. Personal problems, exactly. Or maybe her life, like you said, personal problems is going out in a handbasket, and she comes into work and all the problems from her personal life are riding in on her shoulder.
She's failing to separate work and home.
Exactly. And a lot of people do that. Now, we got to keep in mind when we're in leadership that if I might have a problem, if my child might be sick, or my spouse or significant other may be ill, or there may be problems in my family, the same thing could be going on in my team with their lives. And so if I come in one day and I realize my attitude is subpar, but I give myself a pass because I'm like, well, my bathroom flooded last night. Okay, it's acceptable. But what if Jenna comes in with an attitude? Do I give her a pass? I need to think maybe she has a problem somewhere in her life, and I need to give her a chance offline, meaning not in front of everybody, to just talk. Now, I can't necessarily ask, are you doing okay? Are you going to the doctor? Are you sick? You're not going to ask those questions, but you're going to say, is everything okay? Do you want to talk about something? Maybe she declines. You gave her the opportunity.
Care in that.
Exactly.
Because either way, if you hire them, it affects negatively on you.
Right. Well, there's that, but even more than that, ethically, I now have a responsibility for her actions, and also for her motivation and her engagement, satisfaction, her contentment here. So there's something about this place that we can change a little bit to make it more conducive for her. I think that'd be awesome. We should. Okay, so so how can I ensure that this team is diverse? Diversity is a hot topic, and in lectures, you gotta remember, this is academia. We talk about all kinds of things. We bring ourselves to the table and we talk about them not from this is right, this is wrong, but rather this is just what is. All right. Diversity. Diversity isn't just about race. That is a part of it, but that's not all of it. I'm 53. Okay. How old are you?
20.
20. An employer is going to see you much differently than they see me. Okay. I'm almost 60. I'm at that point. Come on in. I'm at that point now where I can start being judged for my age. They think I'm too old. Let me update the book here. Let's see. We have Leo, and who else came in with Leo? Okay, and Noah. Okay, great. Diversity is also gender. Okay, if I have a team and it's construction workers, you're going to think typically it's going to be mostly male. Not always. There are female construction crews. There are women in construction. And to say that a woman is weaker physically than a man is erroneous. I've known some women that are much stronger than most men I know. So you can't judge somebody on that. So you're going to say, okay, diversity includes gender. Then we're going to go, okay, I grew up in Christianity. What if I have Muslims coming in my team? Well, I shouldn't judge them for their religious views. If they're able to do the job and they have a good attitude, hire them. It includes anything that makes somebody look different from somebody else. I've got tattoos, as you probably have noticed by now. I get judged. I am a metalhead. And that's not all that I am. I like classical music too. I like R&B. I like jazz. I like all kinds of things. But I have the tattoos. People don't always take time to ask me, why do I have them? It's my life story. It's also armor. It's psychological armor. I found myself in situations throughout my life where I felt I was being judged or this or that. And it was a way to make an automatic distance with people. And I did it at that time partially for that reason. Now, I really don't like the distance, but there are times where it's beneficial. So you may have people come into your employment, they're seeking employment, they have tattoos. Don't worry about that. Look at their qualifications. Look at their attitude. Look at their willingness to grow. These are things that you as an employer are going to want to look for. So diversity means that you're not singling out traits or belief systems or where somebody grew up or what kind of food somebody eats or how old somebody is or whether somebody has hair or not. People get discriminated against for all kinds of things, not just race, but that is one of the things on there. Moving on, abilities. Your employee, you want to make sure they have two distinct sets of abilities, mental and physical. Mental abilities, these include like things like verbal comprehension. What do different words mean? Photophosphorylation, who knows what that means? If this was a biology class, I'd expect all of you to put your hands up. So make sure that you're looking at the words that are relevant to what the person is going to be doing. Photophosphorylation is the fancy scientific way of saying photosynthesis. That's all it is. It was a $5 word I picked up. Paid $99 for it. I got it on sale. Word fluently. Fluent. Anything but what I'm doing right now.
Vocabulary.
Word fluency. There. What was that?
That's a vocabulary.
That was a tongue issue. Knowing the words for various activities and or objects. You want to make sure that person mentally is able to communicate. You don't want to hire somebody for a security guard position who's not able to describe the situation that just happened. I did security guard work for a while, and you're not necessarily stopping people. You're not apprehending people. You're reporting what happened. And then you notify the authorities and let them deal with it. So you have to be able to communicate properly for whatever position you're hiring that person for. Number fluency. They can perform basic math or the math level that's required for that position. Once again, if the person comes in and you're hiring for a security guard, you want to make sure the person can add, subtract, the basics. You're not making sure they do calculus. If you're hiring somebody for Six Sigma to be on a Six Sigma team, they need to be able to do calculus. It doesn't mean you ask them, can you do calculus? You may ask them to work through a simple sample problem in which they may have to explain the formula that would be used. Things like that show that they understand it. You're not necessarily giving them a test, although some companies do. They'll give you a test, you sit down and you take it. Sometimes it's a psychological exam, sometimes it's a skills exam. That is another way you can do this. You want to look at deductive reasoning. You want to make sure that the person can figure out various maxims and processes. Maxims are rules. Processes are procedures. And so if I was hiring, once again, Jana, you're in the front, so you need to pick that once in a while. Interviewing you for a position as an assistant manager at a retail store. I am going to ask you questions about situations, how you would respond if a customer came in and complained about X, Y, and Z. Now, your responses are going to tell me that you're thinking through. So I'm doing this evaluation right there at that moment. You want to look at their memory. Are they able to recall various lists, make required associations? That can be done on a psychological exam. And when I worked for the sheriff's department down in Texas, I had to take one of those. In a regular interview, you're not necessarily going to be quizzing all these things, but in your questions and their replies, you're able to determine the person can recall back to a time when they had an instance like this. Have you ever been in an interview and the person says, have you ever had an instance where a customer came in and complained because the product just didn't work when they got it home? Well, how did you handle that? Well, they want to know that you understand the process, the procedure, but they're also checking to make sure that you're doing the correct associations in your mind. You're coming up with an answer that's relevant to what the question was. If I ask that same question and you say, yellow birds fly south. Okay, maybe they do, maybe they don't, but that's not relevant. So you can tell right there, you're not having to be a psychologist when you're hiring somebody, but you're looking to make sure they can generally keep up. Spatial aptitude, understanding where things fit together geometrically and spatially. Normally, you can tell that just by a person walking, sitting down, and picking up a pen. If a person can do that, they're going to be pretty capable of understanding the space around them. Once again, if a person comes in and they're handicapped, and they do have issues with spatial understanding and grasping it, we're not here to judge them. But if it's a job with mixing chemicals, you got to make sure that person's not going to be spilling hydrochloric acid all over the place. So we're not using this in a way to discriminate, but to make sure that the person is truly qualified. Perceptual speed. This is the able to visually understand an object's relation in space. Once again, walking down a hallway and sitting in a chair demonstrate that more than sufficiently. But why would an employee need to have this skill? Why would it be important? Because if you're driving a forklift and you don't understand things from the perceptual, what's going on around you in your perception, you'd be like me and drive a forklift through the front door of a barn. I did that. And my boss still let me drive the forklift after that. I don't know if he was insane or what, but
I think he just thought it was very fast.
it was pretty funny. I was one of the forks went right through this metal aluminum door at a feed barn. Anyway, moving on here, cognitive complexity. This relates to a person's ability to use the 7 aspects that we just discussed to gather information from their surrounding environment. These are skills you as students here at this university use regularly. You process the world around you. This is where I'm going to do a little tangent. Reality. Reality is something that we have a shared understanding of. Or that is where we determine what reality is. It's a consensus of what we all perceive around us. However, the details of our perception may differ. Reality is like a drama played out on a stage right before us. If I stay in my seat and I don't get up during intermission and talk with Simba about what he saw, then I'm limited to just what I perceived. If I only talk to the 2 people on my side, my left and right, I'm stuck in an echo chamber. That is a logical fallacy. And that means only the things I think already are being echoed back to me by those around me. But if I get up and I go talk to you, you may tell me that you noticed something that the actor playing Romeo said that I didn't hear. Now, my reality is that he didn't say that, but I'm not going to argue with you. I'm going to listen to your perspective, and that's going to help inform me more about the details of reality. This is why when we're entering into this decision making, we want many people involved in that process. Every moment of time is impacted by a number of factors and variables. Actually, it's an infinite amount of them. And they're different every single moment of time. You may see something I don't. And so you say, no, I perceive this. I'm not going to say it's a bad thing. I'm going to say, oh, okay, let's put that on the list. So we are going through and each of us gives what we think. Everybody might see the same thing generally, but a little difference. I want that difference because that's going to help us account for more of these factors affecting that moment. The human mind thinks in a linear way. If A, then B, then C. If I do A, outcome B happens. If I don't, consequence D follows. And the consequence has to be relatively close to our action. That's the way our human brain, it works. Reality is nonlinear. This is where we get into briefly, this is, you don't have to worry about remembering this or writing it down. Nonlinear dynamical theory, also known as nonlinear dynamical systems theory. This relates directly to, and is chaos theory. Chaos theory is a fascinating field, but our brains don't comprehend the chaotic nature of a nonlinear series of events. Where linearly it's A, then B, then C. In nonlinear, it's A, 22, 55, infinity sign. It's all over. So if this is how the moment in time we're working on this decision is like, I need to get as many people involved to get their perspective of the shared view of reality so I understand what the actual problem facing my organization is. Does that make sense? You just got into some heavy stuff right there with nonlinear systems, dynamical systems there. Leaders need to understand their staff and their ability to make sense of the surrounding workplace. You have to know your people. Leadership is relational. Management is positional. A manager is worried about the nuts and bolts. A leader is worried about the humanity of the situation. A manager can be a leader, not always. Many managers I've known were not leaders. Think about sports. You want to know who the leader is? who is the person that other team members go talk to?
Typically the team captain.
Right, but what if it's not? What if it's Joe? What if more people go talk to Joe about things going on than they go to the team? Joe is actually a leader. He's
Somebody
leader
you
by,
can relate to.
he's leader by default. No, that's okay. Leader by default. What were you saying?
He's a leader based. He can relate to them better. He is willing to talk. He's willing
Yes.
to listen. He's willing to try to extrapolate
Yes.
and say, well, this is what I see how you're seeing it, but let's talk about what I saw.
Yep, exactly. Somebody that people can relate to. So when we want to see who am I a leader to around me, look at the people that come to you for advice or bring the problems to you. Those people do see you as a type of a leader. So I can be a leader in my family. I can be a leader among my friends. I can be a leader at work. I can be a leader in the social groups I'm a part of, or I may be a follower. However, the reality is I'm not a leader in all of them. I will be a follower in some groups and a leader in others. And knowing my place allows me to fit into that. Among my colleagues, I am just another colleague. Here in the classroom, I am a professor. My role is different. And so understanding that relationship with the group we're a part of helps us be able to properly interact with them. Get the right button. There we go. Identifying cognitive levels. Low cognitive ability. We're going to go through these kind of quick. According to your textbook, people with low cognitive ability categorize and use stereotypes. It's easier and simpler to rely on stereotypes. Stereotypes, while usually wrong in a number of ways, the foundation of them comes from something historically throughout human evolution, existence, whatever you want to call it, that got us kind of mentally programmed. You're walking down an alley, it's late at night, and you're not me because dark alleys don't frighten me. I spent a lot of time in dark alleys and getting people all around everything, and they just don't frighten me. We hear a bag rustling. It's startled. We look and it's just a bag blowing in the wind. Do you realize that comes all the way back from when we were out in the wild? When we were hunters and gatherers and a predator was in the bushes? That little bit of startled was enough to kind of give us a little bit of an edge to try to save our life in that moment. So we still have that. And part of organizational behavior is understanding we have a lot of this stuff still in us. And so instead of just getting startled and then running away, get startled and find out what the situation is. Do I need to run away or not? Don't take a lot of time. Try to do it in a millisecond or two, but think it through. Low cognitive ability, there's a limited ability to think in degrees or place things on a spectrum. Most things in life are on a spectrum. Very few things are cut and dry. Very few things, especially in a subject like this, applied psychology, applied sociology. There's nothing that's really cut and dry. Because let's just think about this. How you respond to, how Jana responds to a bag rustling in a bush may be different than you. Maybe different than you, maybe different than me. We all may respond, but we're going to respond differently. They work best with a simplified design. There are fewer variables to consider. You're hiring somebody and they have a low cognitive ability. You've assessed this in your hiring process and you're like, okay, they would be great for this type of position right here. Maybe working on a production line. Okay. I may not want them mixing chemicals. Once again, I'm not disrespecting them. I'm not looking at them poorly. I'm trying to put them into a place where they're going to be best fit, best suited. They may react to the surrounding environment. They may be emotionally driven. Now, high cognitive ability, they're less bound to be stuck to predetermined conclusions. Their critical thinking skills are much higher. They can understand multiple potential interactions, such as variables and outcomes. They can evaluate the space around them using many different inputs. Think about all the inputs that we have available to us. I can understand my environment, tactile, my fingers, touch. Even our skin, if there's somebody walking by, we might feel a breeze. Well, that's still tactile. There may be a temperature fluctuation that we feel. There may be something we see, we may hear. Or you just might have that funny feeling, your hair stand up on the back of your neck. Well, you're perceiving something with your senses, and your brain just doesn't know exactly how to register it. They can evaluate the space around them using many, I've already said that. They think things through. My dad, when I was a kid, I started work at 10 years old. Actually, earlier than that. And it was an abusive family relationship. Paying attention to detail was something that he thought I was incapable of doing. It is something I became very good at. Imagine standing around and you're helping your dad work. He's in construction. He puts out 52 tools and he asks for a screwdriver. You have to know what kind of screwdriver, what size of screwdriver, and which one of those he actually prefers. Find it and give it to him in less time than that. So there was a heavy stress on me. I tried memorizing every single tool was. I tried to understand the environment around me continually. I was always on edge. Not a healthy environment to grow up in. But it did help me pay attention to things. Paid off later on when I was in the Navy, and then later in the Army, and then later on when I was doing my doctorate. So there was a benefit that was incumbent on me to find. My dad messed up, but I was able to make something good out of what he did. That's called being an adult. High cognitive ability, they can separate themselves from the situation. Think to a time when something happened and you took that moment, you separated yourself from the emotion and the intensity of that moment and what was happening, and you critically processed everything that you could. That is essential, especially as a leader. And especially if your function in the organization is one that is critical, mixing chemicals, handling nuclear material. Those are some major examples. A neurosurgeon performing an operation.
Heavy machinery.
Exactly. Operating a forklift. Not driving it through a door. These are things that require us to be able to separate ourselves out. Now, the problem is our biology backfires. We sometimes like to think that we can separate our emotional side from our logical side. I'll deal with the emotions later. I'm going to be like Mr. Spock from Star Trek. I'm going to have no emotion. I'm just going to go about this, and not even, we may look like we're succeeding, but we're not. The human mind processes emotionally and logically at the same point in time. There is no delay. That means while I am very good at separating my emotions out from my logic, I'm still experiencing the emotion. I just have learned, I experience it briefly, then I take that and I file it, and then I go back to it later. But I can't help but experience the emotion at that moment. But being able to experience it, understand what happened, and it's okay that I experienced it, and then I file it, lets me be able to rely more on my logic, which is great until you're in a relationship. Then you should be relying more on the emotions. Maybe why I've been married 4 times, but I don't know. It has not been a good thing in relationships to have that skill, but knowing ourselves is important. Leadership. Textbook pointed out leadership style and decision-making can be used with the list we just discussed. And we use this to evaluate the leader's ability. So if you're evaluating a coworker, another leader, you can use this material we just discussed. I do the MBTI about once every 2 years because I want to know who I am. You see, philosophically, I'm a Stoic, and I'm also an existentialist. So I do an inventory of who and what I am every 2 years. I'm always doing it. I do it formally once every 2 years, but I'm informally conducting a personal assessment all the time. And I look for things in myself, the things that I like and the things that I don't like. The things I don't like, I have 2 choices. I can either change it or I can accept it. If I choose to accept it, that means I have to be willing to accept the consequences. It's a heavy burden. But to be in leadership means that we have to know ourselves. It is said that at the doors to the Temple of Delphi in ancient Greece, it was written, and I forget what it was actually in Greek, but I know the English translation. Ganote. So something Ganote. Anyway, know thyself would be the English translation. Know thyself. You see, this temple wasn't like a church. It was a mystery school, which means that it was a philosophical academy. So to go in there, you had to understand who you were. Not just what you like and don't like, but who you really are existentially. Yes.
It's mostly because Greeks, the religion back then was all about worshiping more than one concept.
Well, technically, yes, but I like to use the word concept. Because what the Greek pantheon is a way to explain the myriad of emotions and things going around that they couldn't explain through their science at that time.
Lightning, the sun, the moon.
Zeus, Apollo, yep, exactly. And so to go to this mystery school, you weren't necessarily going into a religious experience, but you were going into a philosophical kind of environment. It was similar to going to a university. So knowing yourself, yes?
Or a very complex library.
Yes, some of them were, absolutely. Is the leader, or are you, able to analyze, synthesize, and think abstractly? So analyzing, I'm looking at the data. To synthesize means now I take the data that I just looked at and I work it into something that's useful. When I teach academic writing, which I do in the first week, and you had that last week, the meal plan, main idea, evidence, analysis, lead out. Your synthesizing happens in the analysis time. That's where you're taking the data you just analyzed and you're working into whatever it is that you're dealing with. So can a leader do that? If not, then they may have a low cognitive level. And just because somebody has a low cognitive level doesn't mean they can't be a leader. Not in the least. I'm not saying the person is stupid. I'm saying that they may not be suited for certain types of environments or work. And so they need to understand themselves to get them into the right place that would feel comfortable and where they succeed. And as a leader, I need to help them with that process, not judge. So neither the low nor the high levels are negative. But the leader needs to have the correct cognitive level for the work that they are expected to perform. Otherwise, there's going to be a problem. When I was in the Army, who here has ever played Call of Duty? I used to do stuff like that for real. I can clear a room. I can assault a building. I can take a unit through a field. You know what my job in the Army was? Has any of your professors ever been a spy?
Oh, we don't know.
I was in military intelligence. My job was to take a recon team to go into enemy held territory, hide. I could turn a Humvee into a rock. You wouldn't even know we were there. And sit there and observe all night long. Counting every single vehicle in person. Unknowing if it's a ZSU 90 or a ZSU 89. That's the type of anti-aircraft weapon. Now, I had to be able to form certain skills for that. I had to be able to command my team in combat. How do you react to a flare? What do you do? I had to know all that stuff. It was a skill set. Not everybody was cut out for it. I had a soldier, we're not cut out for it at all. He was a good soldier in some ways. And I like to use him in the areas he was good at. I had another soldier. He was basically a brick wall with legs. He was nothing but muscle. He wasn't the brightest person. He was one of the most loyal people I ever knew. I had another guy, he was fast and nimble. We worked together good as a team because I found the strengths of each person and how one person's strength would complement another's weakness, and we worked our team that way. I also received their input. I wanted their input when we were planning. They gave them ownership, organizational citizenship. It's a form of ownership. You own this organization in a sense. My soldiers, they owned the team. We had a higher track record, better track record. We had more awards than the other recon team in our unit. And I attributed it to actually treating these people like they were viable, regardless if they had a low or a high cognitive level. Physical abilities. Textbook discussed the motor skills. Yes.
Good question. You know, so can a leader be a manager?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What I'm saying is a leader can be a person, a manager can be a leader. Summer is a manager, but she's also relationally driven. So she forms the relational bonds with each member of the team and with the team as a separate individual, because a team is, if I have a team of 4 people and I'm the 5th, I actually have 5 team members plus me, because the team collectively form a new individual, a new entity. And so Summer realizes that and she forms bonds with each person on the team and with the team as a whole. So she could be a manager and a leader. So yes, the two do go over, but most people that make it to management don't get this relational component. They may be good at the nuts and bolts of the operation of what they're doing. They may know how to do this. They may know how to set the equipment up or run the machine or whatever it is, but they can't form these bonds at the human level like they need to. Whereas she comes in and she's able to do both. So you may have a manager who's not a leader. Another person might be the leader informally, because a leader can be selected by the team informally. And it's not, you don't hold votes, you just find the person people go to.
So who's more effective, a leader or a manager?
I
Because
can't say one is better than the other because they're different in what they do.
they're different roles.
They're different roles, but they can be done by one person. Ideally, every manager should be a leader.
But that's already in practice.
The reality is that's rarely the case. It's the perfect world. Every manager would be a leader. They would know the operational nuts and bolts, and they would understand the relational aspects.
Because where I'm going with this is, we're saying if there is a manager, okay, getting the work done, but the employees are motivated to do what they're supposed to do. So the efficiency and activity is going to be low. So then you need a leader, since we don't have both one president.
Well, that's why you could actually, in a situation like that, you could create the position of a team leader. So you have your manager, and under the manager is the team leader. And so that person acts as a go-between in the areas where that manager is deficient. And so you could do that. Or once again, most teams informally select a leader. In the absence of one, most groups of people will select a leader. And it's all informal. It's not a formal thing. When you figure out if I'm that manager and I realize that's my deficiency, and I see who the leader of that group is, I'm going to start working with them. I'm going to say, listen, we've got this project we need to talk about. I'm going to bring them in and I'm going to use them to fill the areas where I'm deficient. I'll work with them. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people in management have a huge ego because they like the title. CEO of this, director of that. Who cares? Okay, who cares? At the end of the day, can you relate with people like they're human beings, or are you trying to treat them like they're robots? So you can have a manager that's not a leader, but usually you'll find somebody there is a leader, and if that manager has any brains in their head, they'll ally with that person.
So could you teach a leader to become a manager?
I actually wrote the curriculum that has been used here at Cleary University to teach leadership skills. Yes, you can teach leadership. Some people will learn it more easily than others. Other people are very resistant to it. Once again, you got to get past that barrier. You got to break the fence down, show them why this is good, how it will usually benefit them financially. That's usually the point where they start giving up that resistance when they realize they can make more money if they want contests. So yeah, you can teach a manager to be a leader, but once again, not every company does that, and not every department does that. Otherwise, we wouldn't have to have classes like this. So does that answer your question? Okay. Physical abilities, eye to hand control. Touch your nose. Can you do this? If you're pouring beakers of chemicals, You know what the other class is before you start pouring. Ability to handle objects. Once again, there are disabilities where a person can't grasp onto things or where they can't perceive things in space. You can't say it either. Space. Just so you know, I am handicapped. I have multiple sclerosis. I also have a back that's falling apart into a million different pieces. That, long story, thank you, Army, for that. So it's not everybody that's handicapped and disabled is easy to identify. So you may find somebody like me, I have hard hearing in his ear. So I may favor this one when I'm listening to you. And if I have this ear to you, I probably won't hear what you're saying. Other things. There are times where balance is hard for you. And so if you learn, you see these things with somebody, you'll catch them. Now, that doesn't mean people should discriminate against me. It doesn't even mean that they should go out of their way to help me. But just understand, if I'm trying to say something and I get tied up with my tongue, maybe I need to take a drink, or maybe my MS is affected part of my brain that makes it a little more difficult for me, and I have to concentrate more on the words I'm saying. So I usually use notes. If I'm presenting to people, I usually use notes. And I'll usually follow it very closely, unless I go off on tangents, which I do a lot. Because then it keeps me right on track. And if I have one of these glitches because of the MS, it doesn't show. So what's the other thing is on a spectrum, we don't want to judge people. We don't want to patronize them. But we have to understand, I may not be suited for a job mixing chemicals. Fine. I'm not worried about that. I'll do what I am good at. And I'm fine being selected for that. I'm not going to be selected for things that I cannot do because of my disabilities. I'm not upset by that. Not everyone has the same physical strength or dexterity. So once again, you got to find the right person for the right job. If somebody doesn't hire me for a position, I'm not offended. I just either say, they found a more qualified candidate, or I just wasn't really fit for that position. Either way, I'm probably better off not getting the job because I probably wouldn't fit there. So I'm not upset that way. So when people are hiring, they got to make sure they're going to get the right fit for that job. Physical abilities. I'm going to go through this really quick. You got dynamic strength, so that's muscles. Strength over time. Trunk strength. That's the strength of the back and the abdomen. Static strength, prolonged pushing or pushing strength. Explosive strength, quick bursts of strength. Extent of flexibility, movement of the back and the abdomen. Dynamic strength, quick flexation movements. Gross body coordination, conducting multiple movements. Equilibrium, that's balance. And stamina, strength over time. So why would a leader have to be concerned about this? I'm hiring a construction crew, namely a framing crew, or better yet, a roofing crew, even better. Have you ever been on a roof? It doesn't have to be that much of a pitch. That doesn't look like a real steep pitch when you see it on the house. When you get up there, it is going to be much steeper than you thought. And if you've hired people that don't have the right kind of balance that you need, or are lacking in strength, you're going to have a lot of workman's comp claims coming your way, a lot of injuries. So I'm going to hire people that I know not only want the job, but that they can actually physically do it. Mentally, they can do it. Then when I put together the right team, it's going to work. It's going to function like it should. Psychomotor abilities. Okay, this we're going to go through in like 4 seconds. Being able to put your fingers together. Being able to use the different parts of your muscles and your skeleton, your musculoskeletal system, and be able to use them in a way that does something. Okay. Once again, I'm hiring people. I got to make sure that they can swing the hammer. How am I going to do this in an interview? I'm not a doctor. Well, I am, but I'm not a medical doctor. How am I going to do this? I might have them go hammer in a few nails on a piece of wood. I might let them work for a few hours. What was your idea?
No, I was thinking about it.
Okay. So you may have them go show you that they can hammer. You might be able to do this, or you just ask them, where have you worked before? Well, I work for this construction company, I work for that construction company, and they give you the references, you call them, hey, they did work there. Okay, they can obviously do the job. So you don't have to, I literally test every person. You can just look at their resume, see where they work, call their references, and you usually will get most of what you need for the mental and the physical abilities that are necessary. So why spend time discussing movement? As a leader or manager, you'll need to be able to make decisions based on how mobile your team is. So think about an athletic team. Every position, it's not exactly the same when it comes to mobility. A goalie needs a certain type of mobility compared to a different person on the soccer team. In football, American football, your kicker has got to have one type of strength versus a quarterback versus a lineman. So we're getting the right person to the right position. Once again, avoid discrimination. It's real easy to discriminate. To say, well, I'm just trying to get the right person for the right position. That is a loophole some companies and some managers, and unfortunately leaders, use to discriminate. Well, we're just looking for the right fit for this position. Well, you brought in 15 people and told them we're actually a good fit, but they just weren't what you wanted. You were discriminating against them for whatever reason. So be careful to avoid that. This is one of those areas that is in a gray zone, and we have to be careful. And make sure that your judgments are based on need and ability. You're not going to make sure that you have a neurologist who's able to swing a hammer. So make sure that what you're looking for is fit to the position you're hiring for. Personality. Black et al., they define personality as, and they're quoting Salvatore Hamadi here, a stable set of characteristics and tendencies that determine those commonalities and differences in the psychological behavior, thoughts, feelings, and actions of people that have continuity in time and that may not be easily understood as a sole result of the social and biological pressure of the moment. In other words, who we are in this moment in the situation we are in. Our current situation is a classroom. Your situation is like you're in a seat, you're listening. Just make sure I'm not going over it. And you're listening. You're processing information. I'm in front of you putting on a show. Basically, that's what it is. Not literally, but I'm presenting you information and I want to do it in a way that keeps your attention. And you want to know what? You guys are quite an attentive group. And that's good because I used to be an entertainer. I was a clown for 10 years. I did magic. I did comedy. I performed internationally with the public relations team while I was in the Navy. I performed at the presidential inaugural ball in 1997, the main ball. I've done comedy clubs. Done all these different things, right? So I bring those skills with me when I come in here. That's why I'm a little different when I lecture versus than when I just sit and talk to someone. I slip a little bit into my entertainment self, but retaining my academic doctoral self to present the information that I'm prepared to give you. I'm thinking about how am I going to convey this information in a way that you're going to accept into your brain and process. So our job in this moment of time, we're in the same space, we're in the same moment of time, our job is different. And our personality has a lot to do with how we're interacting. And already, just today, because there's more of you here today than there were last week, I see a lot of your personality already being displayed. Like you, Jana. I'm willing to bet you're a very quiet individual, but you're very, very observant. I bet you see details that some people just glaze right over. You, sir, it's easy for you to convey information. You're observant too, but you find something and you put it out there and you stick, you're determined. You stick to what you have found to be a truth at that moment. Okay, that's good. Simba, you're inquisitive. You're observing what's going on and you're processing. You're kind of in between the two. You sit there, you're quiet for a while, but when it's time, when you know it's time, you have no problem speaking up. Okay? Each of you has your own personality, and I've already been reading some of that personality, and I haven't done any MBTI on you. I haven't done any assessments on you. As a leader, you have to be able to assess people in any given environment. You need to be fairly correct. You're going to make mistakes. I know I missed some points with each of you, and I may have got one or two things wrong, but as a general rule, I probably got you guys close enough that I can interact with. When I was an entertainer, I did street performing as well. And I also did table magic in restaurants. Imagine walking up to a table. Good evening, how you doing tonight, sir? Can I show you a trick while you're waiting for your food? I go to a different person, different personality part of myself, but I'm interacting with them. I gotta know. But before I get to that table, is he gonna tell me to go get out of here? Or is he gonna be willing for me to? Or is he be willing for me to approach him? You cold read people. You see people that do hypnosis or psychic stuff, they do a lot of this. Well, you do it too. You cold read people. Now, what's a hot read or a warm read? We already interacted quite a bit. I know quite a bit about you. Maybe we talked for 5-10 minutes. So I don't have to cold read. I already know something about you. That's a warm read or a hot read. I maybe never interact with you. I come riding over and I'm able to interact. I'm cold reading. I'm reading body language. I'm reading your eyes. I'm reading every little thing that you do, everything. Your body posture. Leaders need to be able to find skills like this to be able to refine how they lead their people. Knowing personality is essential. Factors of personality. So we got to look at what these factors are and how they impact the person's personality. Your textbook pointed out 7 key factors that make up personality. The psychological, or pardon me, physiological, relates to our body. Cultural, this is the culture we grew up in. Now, we can't just stop and say, well, I grew up in America. Okay, great. Where in America? You see, I grew up in eastern Colorado, northern Maine, central Kentucky. That's 3 different cultural areas. Now, in eastern Colorado, where exactly was I? What was the environment I was in? What was the decade I was in? That dictates a lot of culture. So understanding the culture really gets a little bit nuanced because we can be from the same state and have different cultural backgrounds. Family and social. This is where we find the effects of nurture. Nurture versus nature. Okay. Social programming happens in a social unit, like a family. My family, they raised me, they programmed me through nurturing. I have certain attributes because of that. I have other attributes solely due to genetics. That's nature. So every person is a combination of nature and nurture together in one, as far as it comes to their personality. The role and position. This is related to our position in a social setting. We just kind of talked about that. Where you are in this moment of time versus where I'm at. Our roles are different. If you were up here teaching, you would be in a different role. And we understand that and we adopt what we need to from our personality in that moment of time. And situational, this relates to the immediate factors in our environment. Situational awareness. Knowing that somebody just walked by that door over there. Knowing that, you know, if there's an alarm going off. Knowing if there's an announcement over a PA system. These are kind of obvious things, but this is knowing the situation we're in. I try to always know my environment. This way nothing surprises me. So if somebody were to come running in here, I probably already saw them in my peripheral. We've had 2 people walk by there at least and started talking about this in the past 30 seconds. I know what's happening across the hallway. I keep track of all this stuff subconsciously. I go into a restaurant, I sit facing the main entrance. I don't put my back to it. I want to know who's coming through that door. I may not consciously always pick that, but I always wind up there. Always knowing what's going on around me. As a leader, we have to know what's going on with our team. We've got to be able to get the temperature of our team just by walking into a room. Because that can tell us real quick if there's a problem or not. If there's internal conflict, interpersonal conflict between people. Basil, you and Jack, is it? Jack, you guys are having this massive fight all the way from the sports field to here. You come into here, you sit down, you're still sitting near each other, but there's tension between you. You're ready to rumble. Okay? I need to figure out what that is because I might have to figure out a way to separate you two in a very peaceful way in order to keep peace in this classroom. Situational awareness as a leader is important. And that's just this environment. What if I was a leader on a production line where safety, there's so many safety issues. When I was in the Navy, I was a corpsman, I was a medic. I worked on the flight deck of an aircraft carrier. The most dangerous place in the world statistically at that time period of the world. I had to know what was where, who was where, what was happening, what planes were coming in, what planes were taking off at all times, because somebody could get injured at any point around here and I had to respond. But I couldn't just run to there. I had to make sure that it was safe between here and there, and I wasn't gonna get caught in exhaust or be in the path of a tow vehicle pulling a plane. I had to make sure that it was safe. Situational awareness as a leader is important. Went the wrong way. I'm going the wrong way still. Okay, personality and work. Now that we've discussed personality, determinants, how do they impact us at work? Well, who I am with my personality will really have a lot to say about how I interact with my coworkers, how I interact with customers, how I interact with the job I have to do. It's going to say a lot if I am somebody that should be on the front line, public facing, customer service, or if I need to be in the back storehouse with nobody around, with just moving boxes around in a forklift to drive through doors. Whoever's hiring me or whoever is my leader needs to determine this, so they put me into the right place. And they use my personality to understand that. And how do they impact me when I'm at work? My personality affects my mood. And my mood affects other people around me. If I carry baggage and weight of problems on my shoulders, and I don't have a way to resolve them, even temporarily, it could mean I come across like a total, well, there's a donkey and there's like a thing in the ground, a large hole, you know what I'm saying, right? I could come across like a complete jerk. And I may not be a jerk. I just might be having a bad day. But I have to understand my personality and how it's going to impact those around me. So I like to tell a lot of jokes. Sometimes that's welcome. Sometimes it's annoying. I'm an extrovert, but I'm also an introvert. I'll go from being in front of people telling jokes to the rest of this day, I probably won't see another living soul. I'll put myself in my garage and I'll be working on a Star Trek model I've been making on XPS phone. Or I may do some painting on another diorama that I've been working on. Tomorrow I may be out in public. I don't know what I'll be doing. But I'm both extroverted and introverted, and my personality. So as a leader, how does this impact? Well, there are times where I feel like being approached, and there are times I don't want to be approached. But when I'm officially in that capacity as a leader, I should always be approachable, whether I feel like it or not. And my people need to be in the right place, and if they are designed to do, and be able to do that task whether they feel it or not. That is a form of like a personality stability. You can still have the angst and the problems and the worries, but no one in the world may know it. Because you're able to keep it back far enough and to present when you need to. So as a leader, you've got to have the right people in the right place. You've got to be in the right place. And you can only do that through knowing yourself and knowing those around you. Self-esteem. Self-esteem, Black et al., they find that as one's opinion or belief about one's self and their self-worth. Let me just say that most people think more highly of themselves than they should, myself included. Why would that be? Logan? Yes.
Because everyone's everybody.
Mhm.
And I want to think of ourselves highly, but we think we want to be successful, and to be successful, you have to have some level of, I know I can lead.
Mhm.
And sometimes it can get inflated when you are on a winning streak or you've been winning at life for so long, becoming egotistical.
You're right, but go one step more basic than that. What's underneath? What's the foundation underneath that? Who resides between your own ears? You do. So at the end of the day, your perception, it's all Logan center. My perception is all Brian center. Your perception is all Janice center. Did I say that right? Yeah. We each have the perspective of being inside of ourselves, looking out. We also don't like, as a species, do not like to be wrong. That's why, okay, my mom has surrounded herself with people that say the same thing she says. She's created an echo chamber of safety. It means that she never has somebody who conflicts with her ideology around her for very long. I, as an academic, welcome people who are completely different than me, who disagree with things that I do, my research and everything. I take research to conferences, present it to my peers, and I expect them to excoriate it. Because I want people to tear it apart. I realize I don't know everything. So if I get more people to tear apart my work, they will help me build it up some more. It'll be really better, be stronger. That's not something most people have automatically. That took years to develop, but I'm glad that I have that. But my perspective is still Brian-centric. I may expose myself to the feedback. I may put myself in situations where other people are completely against what I believe. But at the end of the day, I'm still Brian-centric. I'm stuck between my own ears. I cannot get out of my head. Has anybody succeeded getting out of your own head? No. I'm like this little guy driving a car. You see this in movies. I think Men in Black had an alien that was like in a human suit, little alien in the head. That's how I feel half the time. I'm this guy sitting inside this vehicle going around. I'm stuck here. I may want to see the world through your eyes, but I can't. We need to have empathy as leaders. So how do I do that? Well, I learned I make it about me again. You say, wait a minute, I thought you said empathy. Yeah. I want to know how I have empathy and how your life is going. But I really can't. One, I haven't been diagnosed, but I got a lot of the hallmarkers of being a psychopath. And that doesn't mean a bad thing. It's what's in everything on the spectrum. I personalize a lot. It's about me, kind of narcissistic. I have difficulty with certain types of friendships and ease with others. So I have some of the hallmarkers. Doesn't mean I have it, but I'm somewhere on that spectrum close to it. But most CEOs who are successful are sociopaths or psychopaths. There's nothing wrong with that. But we got to know ourselves. So I need empathy. I don't have a lot of empathy. I gotta gain it. I say to myself, how would I feel? Let's say I want to come on with something that computer writing. I would say, how would I feel if somebody did that? If I would not want somebody to do something to me, I'm not going to do it to them. I'm going to assume, and this is an assumption that assumptions are usually dangerous, but this one has proved to be fairly stable. That if I wouldn't want them to leave, odds are you don't want them to do it. And that gives me one step closer towards empathy. Now I think, how would it make me feel if somebody treated me this way, or somebody said this to me, or somebody avoided me, or this, or that? I think these things through. I put myself in this situation. I say, now, what if I was him, an athlete in college, in a classroom, and this bald professor is up there and he's really just really good. How would I feel? I'm trying to imagine what it would feel like to spend a day, walk a mile in your shoes. Now, that doesn't tell me exactly how you feel, but it gets me a little step closer to you. Now I'm a little closer to you. I can actually ask you things. How does it say this? You tell me more, I'm a step closer. I'm thinking of making a very concerted effort to bridge this gap where there is no empathy to now have empathy. I see you as a human being. I'm interested in what you're feeling, what you're perceiving. Step closer into it. So empathy is not something that's necessarily automatic, but it is something that we can gain. We can build it. I'm showing you this because as a leader, we may have people on our team we do not get along with. Just their existence drives us nuts. But they're on our team. We're their leader. What do we do? How do we treat them fairly? How do I make sure I'm not treating them unfairly or showing advantage to other people? I got to walk through these exercises on a regular basis to make sure. I get along good with you. But I'm your leader. I'm the supervisor. I've got to somehow bridge this gap. So I do the same things I did with him. I do toward you. I suspend any feeling of animosity or dislike I may have, and I say, I'm the leader, I've got to be bigger than this. I act like a mature. I put aside my differences. I take the steps towards empathy, and now I'm able to have it. And we're able to interact. So you can be a supervisor of people that you do not like, and you treat them fairly, equitably, you treat them right, and they begin to trust you. Trust is earned. When I meet somebody, I give you a starter kit. That starter kit will have a little bit of trust, a little bit of respect. Now, what you do with that starter kit, it's up to you. You can increase the amount of trust and respect, or you can decrease it. That is done through your words and actions. So if you increase, how I trust you more, I have more respect for you. If you treat me horribly and do me wrong, you decrease it. But I try to give everybody that starter kit. So as a leader, maybe just have a starter kit that you give every single person in your team, whether you like them or not. Here's an old saying, take it till you make it. Sometimes in leadership, you may have a person, your personalities clash, and you have to take it till you make it. Some people who became really good friends, at first I couldn't stand. But when I took the time to suspend my own stereotypes, my own preconceived ideas, my presuppositions, and I actually got to know that individual and why they do and say the things that they do, I began to actually appreciate them. And then I started to like them. And it wasn't bad to be around them. So leadership is also a thing of maturity. The things that our self-esteem can affect: independence, creativity, motivation, satisfaction, happiness, contentment, success. There's a long list of things that our personality does have, but self-esteem can help. We need to have a positive self-esteem. But yet most human beings, when we look in the mirror, we see two things. We see the most marvelous parts of ourselves that we are in love with. It's like the Greek god Narcissus fell in love with his reflection. And we only see the good things. Like, I think I have a nice looking face. But now if we have a psychological problem, we may only see the negative. So once again, knowing who we are and where we're at in our life's journey, psychologically speaking, will let us know. When I look at myself, whether as reflection or when I look deep into myself in introspection, am I looking at only the positive, or am I looking and just seeing the negative because of a bad place in my life? As a Stoic and an existentialist, I try to see the positive and negative in myself. Kind of started here. I look at the positive and I say, I'm going to reinforce that. I basically do a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats myself. And the things I see as weaknesses or as threats, I somehow have got to either accept them and their consequences or parlay them into something that's positive. Some of our greatest strengths begin as our greatest weaknesses. Locus of control. Your textbook notes that the locus of control is the tendency among individuals to attribute the events affecting their lives either to their own actions or to external forces. Once again, this is a much deeper subject than we're going to go into here. But when you buy a white car, a white sedan, suddenly all you see on the road are white sedans. I used to have a white Ford Escort. Saw them everywhere after I got it. Before I bought it, I didn't see a single one. Once something became important to me, I noticed it among other people. This is what we're talking about, locus of control. Locus of control? Yeah. The control is here. It had to do with me in order for me to notice it. Determinism. If you ever spent a day in religion, and my bachelor's is in religion, my first master's is in theological studies, which is why I teach philosophy here, because theology studies a ton of philosophy and humanities. Determinism is that things are fixed, they cannot be changed. It's predetermined before time, this is what must occur, therefore it has to occur. And then of course there's free will. free will is, nothing was predetermined, and we choose as we go. Yet, the universe is actually very deterministic. If you really get into the astronomy and cosmology, things in the universe do not happen accidentally. There's always a precursor cause to an effect. So that makes me wonder, in my life, is my life truly determined? Do I even have free will, or is free will this illusion? Well, we got to go back. Where's the locus of control? Where does it reside? How am I looking? What am I attributing the events to? If there are bad events happening, do I think I did something wrong and I deserve punishment? Or if there's good happening, do I think I did something right and I'm getting rewarded? If so, then I made myself the center of the universe. And while I do reside between my ears, and in a lot of ways I am the center of the universe, I try to exercise humility. I realize events happen just because there were other causes other than me. Something good may happen in my life, and I had no part in making it happen. Something bad may occur, and I had no part of it. Or maybe I did. I have to try to figure that out. That's up to me. Where's the level of control? Where's the center of that control? I've never won the lottery. Of course, I very rarely, if ever, play. Probably why I've never won it. But yet, if I won it, if I play one time and I won, I think I was the luckiest person on the planet. But really, it was all just a matter of coincidence. What was it? Or maybe it was just the right set of conditions at that particular moment of time, and I was the one person who bought a ticket. That ticket. This is really a philosophical conversation. Philosophy does enter into this topic, organizational behavior, because philosophy is really at the core of psychology, sociology, anything. Because what does philosophy mean? It's a Greek word, philosophe, lover of wisdom. We're trying to find truth about organizational behavior, so we are going to tap into philosophy on occasion. How much control do you really have over your life? I guarantee you, as many people as are in this room right now, there's that many ideas in this room of who or where that control lies. And I'm here to tell you that you're not wrong. You are also not correct. How can I say that? Because I don't know everything about your life. Maybe you are wrong, or maybe you have a part to play in it, but maybe you need to account that other people have a part to play in it, and you're not taking that into account. So you're both right and you're both wrong.
Very hard to see.
Exactly. Exactly.
Just like
But yet a leader has to see beyond themselves. To be a truly effective leader, you've got to see past yourself, but yet you still also have to see yourself. So it's a weird balance in there. Further factors, authoritarianism. How do I approach when I tell my son to do something? Do I put it, thou shalt do this, or I shall smite thee? Be a little.
Do what I said.
Right. Or that's what my dad was like. Or am I going to be dogmatic? It's my way or the highway. Or am I going to be more nurturing and wanting him to explore who he is? And I'm going to say, this is how I would do it, but dude, you got to figure it out. Well, since he's 20, almost 21, I don't tell him what to do. He tells me what he's done. There's a little difference in there. Are you introverted? Are you extroverted? Who are you? What drives you? What motivates you? I really think we're going to probably be. This goes into, and we're not going to get to this today. I will post it online. Ethics and values comes into play here as well. Because all of this deals with what we're talking about. Leadership, organizational behavior, personality. When we know what our values are, what the guardrails of our life are that we've set up to keep us within due bounds, what's our lower limit, what's our upper limit, where's the median of my life, I can now navigate through my life. But I can only do that through understanding myself. So self-evaluation. The same thing with others. You may not be able to take each member in your team through the process that we're discussing, but you got to take your team at least collectively through it in one way or another. Help them understand more of themselves. Culture. Culture is amazing at the power that it has over people. There's language, music, beliefs, social expectations, family relations. These are all parts of culture. Culture is very complex. We're actually gonna cover Tropeners and Hofsteds, I think on Thursday, so we'll talk more about them then. They're wonderful little tools that I'm gonna introduce to you. All right. That's it. Any questions? Anybody want to throw tomatoes at me yet?
We
Look
don't
at
have the money for that.
that. Starting college student, I understand. I spent a decade in college. I understand. All right, well, if there's no questions, make sure you keep up with your work in Canvas, and I will see you on Zoom on Thursday.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Thomas, I'm gonna end this video.
All right, Professor, sounds good.
All right, I'll be posting this. Talk to you later.
All right, thank you. Bye.
All the. Where is she?